Today we're here with Aimee Pullon. We are in this amazing art space, which you're going to tell us more about. How did it happen?
Thank you so much.
We're going to walk around and see some of the amazing artists that you share a space with, and I'm so excited. So how did the space come to be? And also maybe take us back, because you didn't go after school to Michaelis.
No, I didn't.
You had a whole little loop of a journey. So I just want to hear a little bit more about that.
So in terms of the journey, I finished school way back. I then did sports massage, which is actually where a lot of my body elements in my art was.
Okay.
That's where it's informed from that. And then after a while, I actually was like, no, done this enough. And then I started getting into the film industry, which was a really, really interesting experience.
How did the transition from sport massage to
It was
film
actually
industry?
pretty easy, because of the fact that when you're doing sports massage, you're working with a lot of teams where they're up super early. So I worked a lot with cyclists and a couple of rugby players, kind of a few footballers, and then I also had a therapeutic practice. And I'd work in that space. And the thing is, you get up early, you treat them, they go and do the event, and then at the end you'd meet up with them, and then you do like a sort of post-exercise, post-event massage. And so you kind of got used to getting up early, finishing up your day fairly late, and being quite rigorous in terms of the physical work. So to transition into the film industry, it just stuck to water. Like I wanted to do something more creative. And I had a friend of mine who was in production. She was like, go do art department. And I started that when I was 24. And yeah.
Wow. Obviously you got a high work ethic as well.
Yes. No, I mean, that's something that I love about the film industry, is that when you commit, you commit. And then you're there for the project and you run through with it and you just do the best that you can. And as I joke with a lot of people, and they're like, how did you get into film? And how do you build your experience? I'd say, well, you start off, you get shouted at until you get better. And then you know that you're really at a level, and then you start to see your peers rise from there. And you see that, the work just keeps coming in and you're working from there. That's the thing, is like the more you apply yourself, the more you commit to the projects and you really just put yourself into it, then, it goes from there. And it's interesting then, the changeover to going into the art world, because there's not as much of the rigor, there's not as much of the discipline, but you have to then apply it to yourself. You have to actually go, I need to get up in the morning and I need to have a goal set. I need to know where I'm going with this, because nobody's going to dictate that. You don't have a call sheet. You don't have a set list of things that need to happen in order for you to achieve something.
Yeah. And
that is fascinating, because you have to motivate yourself. And you don't know. Unlike a film job or a commercial, you get into the project, finite, this is how much I'm earning, this is when the project ends, this is when it's going to flight.
Right.
With an art, I've got work here that I made 10, 15 years ago, and it's slowly just grown its own story. And it'll come to life every time we bring it out, and then it goes dormant when it's not being shown, and it just really honestly has this life of its own. And you yourself, through the process, learn about yourself. And I think that that's what a lot of people don't understand for artists, is that it's a slow game. It's not something that you overnight are going to be successful or see the trajectory growing. But then there's a sudden moment where you go, hang on a second, like I've done so much, and I've done so much that reflects myself. And you then have that sort of conversation with yourself that's incredibly precious. And I think that's what keeps artists going.
Especially in today's age, I was wondering, like, we are so driven by results, I want to now make art, now myself. Like, maybe people forget, and that's why it's so beautiful you brought in this whole process of being patient. And art is about being able to slow down and draw.
Yes.
And we just want instant images now with AI as well.
Yes.
And I think that the beauty, and I nearly feel that maybe there will be this sort of backlash into the preciousness of being able to sit still and create art.
Yeah. What I realized is that there's a lot of my work tends to look at not just the sort of the psycho-spiritual, but also like the literal physiology of what's happening in your body when you experience something.
Wow.
I'll always try and look at things from not just an esoteric side of things, but then also from a very scientific, what is going on when I experience a thing? What is going on socially when we as a group are experiencing something? And I find that there's so many links in my work speaking about this exact subject, where I know a lot of my work is quite feminist, but the work also speaks towards what men are not able to experience in their own feminine, in their own subtleties, in their own softnesses. You know, it's not just about cornering one element of society. And specifically what you're talking about when it comes to attention, those two are so intricately linked, because to always be giving your attention is a very active thing. Whereas to be able to go passive, to go into yourself, to say, like, what is it that I actually want? What do I want to say? How do I want to express myself through? So like, for example, my abstractions, those are hard. Those are almost, those are almost harder than the figurative stuff. Because of the fact that I have to go, what am I actually just feeling? And express
and give that form.
And give that form, and not feel judgment towards it.
Yeah.
I mean, that particular one at the top, it might not be as much as one of the other works that I have in terms of the work that I put in, but the feeling that I had once I started framing it, once I started putting it together, there was a very particular moment in time that I look at that and I go, I feel what I was feeling.
Yeah.
And those are the things that I think, the instant gratification, you want it here, you want it now, you want the explanation to be clear.
Yeah.
But you lose all of the
magic,
all of the story.
Subconsciousness. I suppose you have to have presence, like believing in yourself, to go, I'm going to take my judgment out of this, and what comes out is me. It's my something wanting to express through me, right? Giving that form. Because you don't necessarily always understand the process, right? You just
that is the one thing that I found with a large portion of my work. I would deliberately put myself in a position where I'm trying to feel and not think. And the things that I found in terms of my own, the sparks that give me that trajectory, is a childlike sense of wonder. So dropping into that, what am I doing? What is going to spark joy? What is going to spark curiosity? And there's an interesting juxtaposition there with curiosity actually lowers the fear. It lowers the judgment. You're dropping into a headspace where you're going, I don't know where this is going to go. There were so many things that I learned when I was studying at Michaela. So I went back when I was 30 to go and study, which was a trip in and of itself.
Yeah.
Also being
when most of the people are a decade younger than you.
Exactly.
Sure.
And you're learning. I think the things that I took away from that as a cultural difference, as a generational difference, was to understand and see what is actually happening with the younger generation in how they see the world, how technology has affected them.
Tell me a little bit about how you found this studio and then how you brought people in.
This is such an incredible story. So basically, I was in a small space downstairs. I was on the second floor and absolutely hating it. Because we were all isolated. You had to kind of close your door. You had to close the gate because it has access to the street, and you'd sometimes just get passers-by and take a chance wandering in. And we didn't know each other. We didn't know who was in the building. It was very new. When I first found the space, there were the two artists who were upstairs, Yasmin and Jenny. And then there was Wendy downstairs, and that was it. This whole building was just empty, and it stood like that for ages. And I moved in with my friend Amber and Kira Dunsby, who has actually moved on to another space. And then the artist who was leaving this particular, the whole of the third floor, she was leaving for Brussels, and I harassed her to let me come and see this space. I was like, it's the whole floor. I want to see what this looks like. And I walked in. I mean, we had so many failed attempts at trying to get in touch with each other and get into this space. Eventually I came in and I was like, this is perfect. It had the division already through the middle. It's 220 square meters. And the way that it was divided up, I could see it immediately. And I reached out to various different people and I said, look, if we pool our resources, we will have such an incredible space in Woodstock. The parking downstairs, the location in Woodstock, the view, the light quality that's in the space is amazing. The thing that I found is the most powerful. I read an article many, many years ago about how where artists become successful is not through their skill set, it's through their community.
Exactly. I was actually
networks.
So we're getting goosebumps.
It's through the support structures that they offer to each other. It's the support in the difficult times where they reach out to each other and go, don't stop making. I know it's hard. You might not have sales, you might not have recognition, you might not have publications like reaching out to you. And even chatting to very established artists, they said the way that art works, you are riding a wave of some years, people adore you. and other years nobody even cares.
But that's for nearly across board all arts, right? It's
Exactly.
The musicians
Music,
or the
theatre
or the
Yes.
arts. It's just kind of like, especially I feel in South Africa, we're not a culture that really supports the arts. Maybe that's my perspective, but I see even with musicians, there's so many amazing,
incredibly special,
We've got so much talent here in art, in our crafts, and one of the elements in Blue Zones is community. And I feel that artists, especially, like if you have to go and sit in your solo world, it is harder when you come in, you're a bit like down, you see Aimee doing this, you're like, oh, that's inspiring me now. And I snap out of my headspace and I go into my body.
Exactly.
And I feel, collaborations like this is definitely more needed.
Yes. 100%.
And more spaces like this where people can come and be creative.
Yes. It's a fascinating thing with all of the arts where you are outputting in some way, because I've tried music, I've got friends that are in theatre and performing arts, and I can't do that to the same capacity. There's something in that the immediate moment that they're experiencing it. Yes, they go home and practice, or they're on stage before the show and they practice. But there's something electrifying for them in the immediacy of their art. For us as artists, it's about the sitting and the being and the thinking and the doing. It's interesting because we have our Wi-Fi password is think with your hands. Because as much as you can think, it's actually in the process of the experiencing of the making. But even then, you're going to run into roadblocks. You're going to run into, mental blocks where you don't know how to move forward with something. And what we try to maintain as much as possible with the space is it is a community. So even when people start moving into a more isolated or solo way of thinking, yes, of course, that's part of your practice. We also have ways where we go, actually, hang on, let's bring this into more of a communal space. Let's try and think, because of the layout too. We don't, you can't be in just a purely, I don't want to say selfish, but you can't be only self-minded in a space like this. You don't have a space to close a door. So we're very particular about who comes into the space, because it needs to be held. It's sacred. It's very, very sacred. At some studios you go in there, but you don't have the same vibe. You don't have this collection of minds.
Beautiful.
And what's so fascinating is that our art is incredibly cohesive. If you move through the space, you'll see that there's very particular themes that we all share. Very particular color palettes even.
That's so interesting. It's nearly like it's a hub collective mind.
It's fascinating.
Okay.
And I found actually there was very recent research on that where with plants and animals, there's a herd mindset. We all know about that concept, but they found that in studies on MRIs with animals, with people, in herds where there is they've spent time with each other, spent a lot of time with each other. And they find that there's almost an aspect where the neurons are dancing in the same way.
Neural pathway.
Exactly.
It's amazing.
So as the group is thinking, they start to think together. Which of course you can think of things like mob mentality and that in the negative content.
Right, but in the positive content, especially like creative force to come through.
Exactly.
Wow.
So as I relate that to in terms of plants and animals, we need that. We need that support structure with each other. And I find often a lot of the artists that are in the space, and many who come into it, they've said that they've tried to have their practice at home. And they can't focus. Or they can't, there's not.
I can relate to that. I've had a studio for years and I can't get myself to sit down.
Exactly.
So I think if you can have that, the tribal, aren't we tribal people actually? We're not solo people.
Exactly. And I think that that's something that's so profound about the experience of art making, whether it's theatre, music, you are the conduit. So what comes through me is, it's like I often say to people, because I work with so many different materials, I'm learning to speak a language of the material.
Oh, beautiful.
It's not my ego that's going, I want to make a thing. That's more of a design element where you go, this is the idea, this is the concept, and we produce it. With art, you're going into a very receptive space. You're saying, you're speaking to the material and going, what do you want to say?
It's like what Michelangelo said about his statue of David, right? It was like, what was the stone revealing? It's
exactly.
What is being revealed.
Exactly. And that's what you'll notice where people are drawn to a particular medium. there's something about the way that medium speaks to them, and they speak to it, that there's a familiarity and a relationship that they build with it.
It's beautiful.
And it's in that kind of storytelling that you go, I kind of give myself over to the material to say what it is that I want to say, but with us working in connection to each other.
Right, so it's everything, what I'm hearing is, well, it's co-creation, right? It's co-creation with the material, it's co-creation with your own subconscious that's coming through you, and to allow that to get out of the way with your judgment, or do you sort of look like this comparison.
Exactly.
And then what's happening in the space is a co-creation of those elements starting to like vibe of each other.
Exactly.
So you're just sitting in this sort of hub of life, of abundance.
Exactly.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
You're gonna walk around a bit and show the space.
Come and have a look.
Yeah.